My name is Duncan Birch. I'm a member of the Hub City Woodturners in Saskatoon. And I've been turning for, probably more than 20 years. And I got interested in vacuum chucking early on. I saw a demonstration where somebody had a vacuum chuck. And so I thought I could maybe build one. So I got a single-cylinder air compressor, and I was able to buy that at a store here in town. And they don't sell them anymore. They sell the two-cylinder ones, but I haven't seen a one-cylinder one. And I just happened to have this motor, so I hooked them all together. And this is just the intake side of the air compressor, and this is the exhaust side. The reason this is on here, it was on here as a filter, but it's on here because it muffles the sound, because it's louder than can be if you without this on here. So, and I say this hose goes to the lathe. And then this is the hose at the lathe end. Now, I made my own adapter here. I cut this to fit into the hand wheel, and I put a couple screws in it to hold it there and put some sealant on it. And then the bearing, I had to have a bearing in there so that it wouldn't twist my hose all up. And so I got a bearing and a fitting that would just not quite fit in there, but it was a brass fitting. And so I put some glue in the threads of the thing, and then I pressed it in there, and there was enough give in the threads that they folded back. And then I fastened that to the hand wheel. And this is just a gasoline filter that I found. And I also, when I built this, in order to position something when the vacuum is on, I can open this bleeder valve and let the vacuum off until I can move it on here without it with just enough vacuum that it won't fall off. And then I can just tighten that up. And this hose is actually gas line. I tried to clear plastic, and I found that the compressor would collapse it. So I got the gas line, and I put a gauge on here as the pressure or a vacuum gauge. And when I turn this on, now when I slacken this off, it'll drop the vacuum some so I can still position the piece on the chuck. Now I put the chuck on here. This is also a chuck that I made. And I mount my plate. I'll just have to turn the compressor on. And I put this on here, and then I close my valve a little bit, and it's enough that it'll hold it, but I can still move it on here to position it where it needs to be. And then I can just close this up, and it sucks the full amount, and it's on there. There's one other thing with this apparatus on my headstock. I'm not able to use the spur drive. So how I solved that problem, I put a regular chuck on and just put the spur in the chuck. And that's how I get away with the issue that I can't put the taper in the headstock. This is the bearing that I used, and this is the fitting. And the threads won't quite fit into that bearing, but they're brass, so if you press them in, they'll fold a little bit. So I filled this with glue, the threads with glue, and then I press that in there, and that's what I have on the end of the lathe. Okay, these are the chucks that I've made, and I use plastic pipe because plastic pipe is round, and they need to be round. So you get different sizes of plastic pipe, and then I just put a piece of wood on here. I got tired of buying these face plates to put on here, so I bought this tap, and I just tap the wood, and most wood will tap fairly well. When I'm done, I put some glue in the threads and run them through a few more times, and that seems to make it so it works better. And I have various different sizes, and I always use the joint on the pipe because the joint is a little thicker than the regular pipe, so it gives me a little more. And then this stuff I just buy an 8.5 by 11 sheet at a hobby store, and I just glue it on there. And when it cuts through, I just turn it off and put a new piece on. So when I make these, I always round the edge a little bit of the pipe, so that otherwise it'll cut through the rubber. So I do that to save the rubber. I've got 4 different sizes here. I've got another one, a smaller one than this, but that I don't use very much. But this one I use when I'm doing the urns, and it will support an urn that's sticking out here 9 inches. And I can turn the bottom on the urn. So. The big advantage to the vacuum chuck is when you're cutting a stump off the bottom of a dish or a bowl, you put it on backwards and put it up, and now there are other ways you can do this. You can use a gem chuck, but I got tired of that, and that's why I started using the vacuum chuck, just for that reason.